No, I believe Sean is just not here, but he will be here.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right. Okay, thank you guys. Because we do have a quorum, and it is now about 3 minutes past 7 on November 9th, so we're going to open the November 9th meeting of the Finance Committee. And tonight we do have a guest. We have the town manager. Hi, John. I'm going to turn one of these. Do you want to turn that one around a little more? All right. Right. I think Michelle and Sean are coming. I haven't heard from Michelle direct. No, maybe I did, actually. No, she can't come tonight. That's right. She's excused. Thank you very much for reminding me. And I believe Sean is on his way. So yes, Michelle is excused. I just remembered that. All right. So John, welcome. On our agenda, we have two things that we probably thought we would be discussing with you. If there's anything that you want to bring up from a post-special town meeting budget perspective, you want to give us any update, you're welcome to. Otherwise, we can jump right into...
We can do both. The meeting, the special town meeting, we obviously accomplish a lot of different things. One of the things that we were able to do is we raised and appropriated about, I'd say about $68,000, which will be captured in the tax rate that the board just set Monday night, as well as we spent quite a bit of free cash. We took some money and put it into stabilization, which I think was a responsible act on our part, and we funded some capital items. In addition to that, let me suffice it to say that we raised and appropriated an amount of money that I think is something that's sustainable. The only caution that I would give to the board is that we've increased that bar, that comfort level, decreased that comfort level from what we would like to traditionally maintain, approximately 2.5%. We reduced that to under 1% of the total budget as far as revenues are concerned, which we should all be aware of, and that we are certainly looking to watch, and we will watch our expenditures closely during the upcoming months, particularly during the winter months. As you know, we increased our snow and ice budget for FY12. We went from 80 to 100,000. I'm going to be proposing in the FY13 budget that we increase that expenditure closer to 150. The average expenditure amount for snow and ice over the last 10 years has been anywhere from 238 to 250,000. So we have to be mindful of that, and of course I know at this point that the highway department is into their snow and ice budget already due to the last storm. We obviously went out and purchased snow. We actually went out and purchased sand. Actually, it's salt. We're doing a straight salt now, which is cheaper because we don't have to clean it up and dispose of the sand and sweep the streets as much as we do when we use just a mixture of salt and sand. Even though it's visible, the streets will be black, and that's probably more visible than having sand on the side of the roads, which then has to be swept in the springtime. So that's labor intensive, and it's costly to dispose of the sand because it's considered by DEP standards to be hazardous waste, and so we have to dispose of it in an appropriate manner because it may have oil, it may have...
It's been mixed with the salt.
It's been mixed with the salt and all that other stuff. So that is something that we're going to certainly pay close attention to. We, at the special within the annual, also appropriated money for the tricentennial. Now we have an obligation of approximately $35,000 to bring them to that $50,000 mark that we had discussed. I am looking at signing a contract for fireworks that exceeds $20,000. And so we've appropriated 15. They've raised a certain amount of money. They have a number of different fundraising activities going on. They are commencing and have received some sponsorship donations, silver, gold, and platinum, or whatever their different giving levels are. We're starting to get some of that money in, so they're well on their way to, funding those activities. So as to what they're going to need at the special within the annual, we are committed to $7,000 for the regional transportation bus that was purchased. That's our share of that bus for regional students who attend outside of our district. We also have the $35,000, and I am projecting that we're going to need an additional $42,000 to $48,000 for the replacement, for this transition replacement between the current town accountant and the FAA associates between now and the end of the fiscal year. I will also tell you for FY13 that we're going to have some contract expenditures for the town accountant that we're going to have to meet contractually, and those deal with sick time, accumulated vacation, and some personal days. I do have those figures. It'll be part of the contract that'll be signed, separation agreement between the town and the employee. So I can get into, that's a nutshell of where we stand.
And how much did you say we have in stabilization? You said that was like 1% of our budget? I know you want to go to like 5 or 6%.
Well, we
just
have
before we jump on
approximately
stuff.
we have approximately 600,000 in stabilization. Now, when I started here, we had 1,000, so we're doing pretty good. And we
Good
need
job.
between 2.8 and 3.5 million.
That's what you'd like to have in
Yeah,
there.
that's what we'd like to have in there. And that'll provide us with the ability to, it's going to also help us with our borrowing
Bond rate.
and our bond rating. And the reason why that's important, it is my understanding within the next 5 years that we're going to be building a new school. That's potentially something that the superintendent and I are looking at very closely. I would like to do a campus setting or campus style type structure, which gives us the ability to build a multi-purpose field along with the reimbursement rates that we expect to get anywhere from 56% or somewhere within that range. There's going to be there's going to be a cost of $750,000 to do the feasibility study. It would be my recommendation that we do a campus-style facility. We have the high school here. Down the road, we have the ECC.
Oh, yeah, the Beaverbrook, what do they call it, Beaverbrook now, the ECC.
ECC is now Beaverbrook?
Yeah,
Yes.
you changed the name of the school.
Because when they opened the North School, I'm sorry, when they opened the Center School,
Oh.
it wasn't really the ECC, early childhood wasn't really that anymore, it was sort of a middle type.
Okay.
Just
So it's
pre-K and K and now the center.
Well, I know
So
we're very
kind of
big
a-
into the Beaver name, so for a lot of different reasons.
But you're right, and almost in
Yeah.
a straight line. We've got the high school, the junior high, and the Beaverbrook kind of all in.
And so we create this environment of a campus setting when and if we end up looking at regionalization and studying that possibility. There may be additional money available to a regional school district that builds a school as opposed to the town of Abington building a school. But that's a different issue and something that shouldn't cloud the needs of Abington at this point. We do have, as I understand it, a very overcrowded school system in the early grades. And so we're going to be looking to relieve that somehow. The feasibility study will provide us with alternatives. So we are going to move forward with a presentation to the Board of Selectmen and also to the Finance Committee we'd like them, I am recommending a joint meeting between the Board of Selectmen, the Finance Committee, and the School Committee to do a presentation on the need for a feasibility study to look at our school complexes and to figure out how best we can proceed.
When would you foresee something like that between now and the end of the fiscal
Well, I
year?
think there's going to be a need to look at a feasibility study for the annual town meeting. I think that's what we're shooting for. We've had some preliminary discussions, the superintendent and I, in that regard, and I do think and feel that there is a need for a school. Now, how that is structured, the manner in which it is financed, all of that is going to be very important for us to show to our bond rating agency that we should be back up to a AA positive or maybe even a AAA as we are beginning to put money back into stabilization. That's going to be very important for us to maintain that the money in that account.
What is our, we're an A
We're-
positive right now? Our bond rating?
We're AA.
Just
Double A, we were AA positive, we are a AA with a negative outlook. And the reason for the negative outlook was primarily because we had $1,000 in stabilization. We have nothing to fall back on at the time. That has since changed. So if, with the $750,000 feasibility study and the potential of going out to bond on the potential for a new high school, or a new school of some kind, I think that's going to, certainly weigh heavily on our ability to make sure that our bond rating is at the highest level possible, so that when we're about to borrow, the cost of that authorization will be far less than potentially what we could spend now.
Got it.
So those are issues that I think we need to be very mindful of and keep on our agenda. To talk a little bit about FAA Associates, I would like to look at that at this point. We're still negotiating as I said, the separation agreement, which is part of the contract that the employee currently has in place. We are looking at a total cost for services between the administrative leave portion of approximately $42,654.86. It's broken out, as you can see, in this sheet that I have provided you.
Did you guys all get one? I think I was sitting on it.
You'll see here that we're anticipating a separation of around
He has one.
Did you have one?
Okay.
November 18th,
Michelle, let me hold it for him.
at which
Sorry.
point,
Where are you, John?
towards the middle of the first page,
Okay.
you'll see that fourth column over is FAA Associates. The hourly rate, we're looking at bringing that person on 1 day a week until the middle of December, and then increasing incrementally as we get into the budget season. And as you can see, from April through June 30th, when we close out the fiscal year, we're going to have a greater need. We proposed we proposed 2.5 days a week at the hourly rate that we have at the top of the sixth column over, if you're counting from left to right. You will see that we have a budgeted salary of $156,379. If you look at the second page, we run out of money in this proposal around the end of April. Now, because we are not starting until the 18th, there is a little cushion of a couple of weeks there. So we may be able to get through to the beginning of May. We are going to have to make two appropriations as I see it for the April town meeting. And one is obviously for the tricentennial, and the other is going to be to get us to the end of the fiscal year in the accountant's office. I do believe that this change is necessary, and that it'll provide for a future prospect that I think would be better for the town in the long term. So I'll leave it at that. This is, certainly an expensive proposition. There's schools of thought, perhaps, that we could wait till the end of the fiscal year and make that change at that point. Unfortunately, the transition is something that's going to take a while to achieve, and I want to be able to achieve that interim and then long-term. So there's two approaches here. The interim is FAA associates, the long-term is to have somebody on board that has the skills that I would be looking for as the town manager here. So we're beginning that transition period where we've had some managerial positions that I'm going to be looking to either consolidate or reorganize. And so we would be starting that process with the accountant's office at this point, as of July 1st.
How seamless do you think this will be?
I've had some previous experience with FAA associates. I do anticipate that this will be as seamless as we can possibly make it. I can sit here tonight and tell you it could be very seamless and all the seams could fall apart, but it is a very important position for us to make sure that it remains as seamless as possible, because we do not want to be in a situation where we do not have the expertise. I will tell you that the person that will be coming on board, Barbara Haig, her relevant prior experience, she was a town accountant for the town of Belmont. She was an accountant for Joan Fabrics Corporation, the chief financial officer for the city of Lowell, the acting city manager in the city of Lowell, the city auditor in the city of Taunton, town accountant in the town of Mansfield, and the town accountant the accountant at the Mansfield Credit Union. She is a past management member of the Lowell Retirement Board, ex officio member of the Taunton Retirement Board, former chairman of the Taunton Automation and Finance Committee, City of Lowell lead union negotiator, past management member of the Belmont Retirement Board, Finance Committee member of the town of Mansfield, and a former executive board member for the Massachusetts Governmental Financial Officers Association. She has a BSBA at Suffolk University, accountant concentration. She has an MMA and an AA, Certified Governmental Accounting, UMIS certification. So she is proficient in Microsoft programs, Munis, and other governmental software systems. So I think that we're bringing to the table somebody who has a tremendous amount of governmental experience in accounting to help us make that as seamless as possible.
Do you have a follow-up?
I'll wait.
Just curiosity, right? So we identified that, April 4th is D-Day as it relates to funding. Why is we started the completion of funding? Just for the spreadsheet, I'm not going to be technical with the spreadsheet for a second. It's more just kind of a general strategy as to where funding could come from. No, so there's two silly questions, and they kind of make me.
May 4th this week.
May 4th, right. So D-Day would be for me, we'll say that's May 4th. We'll change it in my perspective. So to that end, how much money is left in health insurance? we're gonna ask this like a four-prong question, just seeing the strategies. And could you, in your tutorial ability, educate me that if we have an unpaid, there's an invoice that we failed to pay or failed to appropriate in our special before the annual or during the annual, how is that then paid for? What funds does that come from? And what bills can we then unpay or not pay and do a line transfer at the end of the year? Because you have that permissibility, right? You can transfer between certain lines, certain funds that have already been appropriated for.
No more than 5% of the appropriation amount of the line item itself.
But you could take 5% of a series of lines, correct?
That's correct.
Right. So I guess the reason why I asked the question is just looking at where we're looking to get a large sum, 42 grand, but we're going to come up with 42 grand. Right, that's safe to say. So if we look to come up with 42 grand, there's a potential question as to availability of funds from the Abington reserve account. Right. There's another question that would come from is how much are we likely to have in surplus from health insurance, because we seem to transfer funds from that health insurance line item or unemployment line item into cover other departmental balances. And then the next question would be, as I mentioned, is if we opt to not pay a bill or don't have funds available to pay a bill, my understanding, this is where I could be completely wrong because I don't live in your world, is that that's going to come from next year's certified free cash. That's going to come right off the top, or it comes right off the top for whatever you are certified.
If we don't have the ability to cure this within the fiscal year.
Right.
My anticipation is that we will have the ability to cure this within the fiscal year, number one. We usually generate in revenue, in funds that are appropriated but unexpended. That's the working definition of free cash. Approximately $100,000 to $200,000, somewhere within that range. Conservatively, $100,000. Liberally, $200,000. So to cover this expense, the $7,000 and the $35,000 that we have on the table that we will owe at the special within the annual, I do think that we are going to be able to cure those costs in a number of different ways. I do not believe we're going to have a sufficient amount of money in the health line item because we appropriated $14,000 of requests for 30, with a cushion of $30,000. So we were looking at $42,000 or $45,000 requested in the special town meeting warrant article. We reduced it to $14,000. That'll get us to the end of the fiscal year. It'll give us some indication as to where we stand with respect to health care. We did hire additional employees. Additional employees were not only hired, but additional existing employees transferred to the health insurance plan for the town that weren't on it in prior years. So we had those two dynamics going on at the same time. So we may not have a sufficient amount of money as we had in the past to transfer from health care into this line item, for example. I'm assuming that we can call this a line item. We know it's a future expenditure, so how are we going to meet it? I think that we need to potentially look at reserving approximately $10,000 from the stabilization, from the reserve account. We have $20,000 there. Last year we used it at the end of the year. I do not anticipate that there will be emergency expenditures potentially. Now, when we fashioned the FY11 budget, or FY12 budget, we did not anticipate that this would have occurred. We can make an argument that to some degree this was unanticipated. I do not like using reserve funds for salaries. In this case, if we had a salary line item, we decided to give somebody a raise, we didn't cover it, well, too bad. That's a management issue. In this case, it's a little different. We're taking on another position within the budget for which we don't have an appropriation. But we do have this issue with an agreement that we have to meet these obligations with this particular employee. So we're going to meet it one way or another. And so we're going to need to find the money. So there's a potential for money available through the account that I had just talked about, we have the ability to transfer money within the special, within the annual, special within the annual. I don't, at this point, know where that money is going to come from.
Yep.
Which reserve fund? Ours, the finance committee.
Finance
reserve.
Committee's reserve fund.
And then, do you know, what was the figure, or closest you have for the sick personal and vacation for the separation agreement with the employee? Give a ballpark, like a, because we anticipate not having that either, right?
Well, that's a one-time, that closes out
Right.
the
I'm
obligation,
just
so it's a
saying that-
one-time
Right.
expenditure. I would say,
You can get back to me.
I know, it's going to be part of the agreement at some point, which would, which I will share with the board. It's written into the agreement. It's going to be somewhere around 26,000.
And, so we'll need to come up with that in addition to,
Well, that's an FY13. That's part of the FY13 budget.
okay.
So that the
Right off the top?
Well, it'll be part of the budget. We'll work it into the operating budget. It's not something that's coming off of the top. It'll be an expenditure that will be part of the budget that, we will want to get a warrant article to address that. Very similar to how we pay for
Police
somebody
and
who's
fire
retiring
and
on,
library.
it's a
Unpaid
contract
sick leave.
obligation, unpaid sick leave, vacation, or whatever the case may be. It's an obligation that the town has as part of an employment contract. We have since done away with those employment contracts. Most of them expire June 30th of 12, which would be the beginning of the FY13 fiscal year.
Actually, I have a question. It was my understanding that we could not use the emergency fund for salaries. Is that incorrect, or?
I think,
look at that.
I don't know. I mean, it's usually a policy decision that.
Somewhere I have some of the rules, the guidance of what we could use it for.
Mhm.
Emergency, unexpected, and I don't know if it goes into just expenses, or we'd have to look, we can find it.
All right.
I'll take that on, I've got that somewhere.
Yeah, I would imagine that it wouldn't be that restrictive. The expenditure has to be unforeseen, unanticipated.
We have used it for,
Starting up the Grove.
but as far as like a salary based, we used it for, was it the wiring inspector or the plumbing inspector? Do you remember that, Rick?
Yeah,
For unpaid
I think it was sick time.
sick time,
Yeah,
or
that's right,
we have,
we have-
they came
Yeah,
to us
that's right.
with a request for that
Yeah.
a couple years ago, so I know what we have.
My feeling is that I want to try to avoid using that, but if I do need to use it, I would want to let you know that ahead of time and not let you know that that's a possibility. It's on the table. As we begin to look at our trends of expenditure for this particular budget, we're going to begin to aggressively try to identify areas in which we have surplus monies. We may have some surplus monies as it relates to the capital items that we have purchased. If we do, we're going to ask at the special within the annual to transfer that to satisfy,
One of these.
one of the two larger obligations, which would be either this or the tricentennial.
So basically, you're gonna be looking over the next 7 months or so for places that we can
That's correct.
save money so that we can come up
Yeah.
and meet these obligations.
We may end up instituting some expenditure freezes. That way, if we don't have to absolutely purchase something, I'm not going to purchase it. If we can put it off to the FY13 budget year, we will do that as well. That'll generate some, additional appropriated but unexpended funds that we could then commit to these items, if necessary. Again, like I said, we usually generate, the trend has been anywhere from 100 to 200,000 in funds that are appropriated but not expended throughout the budget.
And the three we just talked about are about 84,000 between the tricentennial 35, the 7 for transportation.
In 42, 654, 86.
So 84, 85,000 is what we perceive right now is.
That's correct. And again, I must caution you also to the issue of the snow and ice, which is, going down to the Mohegan Sun with, $10 in your pocket and expect to come back with $1 million. You don't know what that's going to be. I have no idea what Mother Nature is going to bestow upon this lovely little town as far as expenditures are concerned for
I'm not.
winter.
I didn't even say it, just what was going through my mind, I just had to.
Yeah, hopefully it's, it's like Key West. It doesn't get below 70 in the wintertime. And, it could snow in Key West for all I care. But I don't think that's going to happen either. So.
Anybody have any questions for John? I mean, those are the two things that we had on the agenda. Is there anything anybody wants to address with John?
Yes, sir.
They had in the paper that we're supposed to get additional money.
The 120, yes, we received that money. If you remember, when we established the budget, I've already accounted for that money in the FY 12 budget.
Okay.
I've been asked about that twice.
Yeah, that's
this
the-
week.
that's the
I've had
additional
people
stuff.
approach me.
Yeah.
And then the
ask me.
enterprise, that's why.
Well, it was, and, it's not, it's new money to the town, but it's not money that we have not already accounted for.
We knew about it.
We knew about it. I
Yeah.
said to you it would come in October. It came, in November.
Yeah.
But they have turned back, just like we do. In other words, we're talking about 200,000 that we get back in our $46 million budget. They get 120, 130 million. They took 65 million of the potential of their turn back money and gave it back to cities and towns. And our portion of that was 120,000. When we fashioned the budget at the beginning of the fiscal year, we accounted for that money in the budget already, so we can't account for it twice.
Sure. I know that
Good question.
what we receive for a local aid number fluctuates, but that, is there any reason to think that that would be backed out come next budget cycle? The amount-
I don't
or
think so.
Moving forward, should we at least, you think we'll,
My approach for the FY13 budget at this point is to assume that we're going to get what we got last year.
which includes that money that they gave us
That's
in
correct.
the budget?
That's correct. And there's no indication that they would back away from that for a couple of reasons. One is we have this casino bill that's been floating around with and tying some of the revenues to local aid as far as it relates to lottery. In other words, if you're a 10% community, you are whole as far as the lottery is concerned. Abington is not a 10% community, so we are not whole as far as the lottery is concerned. The legislation that is floating around the State House, and God knows what's going to happen to it between now and then, by the time it actually comes either out of committee or becomes an actual law, let's say that we get 8% of lottery receipts, we should be getting 10%, so that 2% would be made up to us as a community under 10% to bring us to the 10% ratio for lottery receipts. So our numbers could incrementally increase a bit if that happens.
And that's
That's an if.
a bill changing in a law.
Yeah.
That-
Yeah, so the
Is
chief
there-
and I
is there
have a better
potential?
chance of becoming
Right.
Mr.
There's potential.
America than that passing, but.
You never know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, in somebody's eyes, in somebody's eyes, we're
Yeah,
there. But, so that's an issue. Where we stand now and the approach I'm taking for the FY13 budget is that we can expect what we got last year. Now, there are some schools of thought that are gonna, follow this concept. The money that the state is going to get for licensing for casinos, let's say, is going to be $500 million. I don't know what that number is. They're going to take a large percentage of that money and kick it into their rainy day fund, approximately $200 million. I've seen that floating around. So if they take 200 million and put it into their rainy day fund, that means that cities and towns are going to get less, not less money, but not going to get,
As much.
they're not going to share in the wealth, all this additional money.
The larger amount.
Of the larger amount. At the same time, the revenue estimates are trending up, which means that the economy is doing better than they anticipated. They closed the fiscal year with $500 million more than they estimated. Over $500 million more. Where that money goes, it is anyone's guess. Some of it's going to go into their rainy day account. Some of it's going to restore some of the programs that they cut at the state level. And my understanding is some of it's going to come back to cities and towns. How much, I don't know.
And we still have the issue come 2013, the stimulus money will have dried up.
Well, the stimulus money dried up for us
Federal,
last year.
I mean, not just for us, for the state.
Well, we have a
That's
funding,
right.
we have a small funding cliff with the schools for FY13 that we're going to have to figure out. And this is part of that stimulus money that's, as you said, drying up. So we do have a slight funding cliff. I think if I remember correctly, it's about 100 to 120,000 on the school side. We do not have a funding cliff at this point on the town side. So really it's going to be how we're going to make that up at the school side. So, looking in a crystal ball, I will say to you that if we do get an increase in local aid, it'll be under 2% overall from what we got in FY12. That's if.
Right. Ifs and buts.
Yep.
Anything else anyone wants to bring up? No? All right.
You let me
Okay,
go
going
early
once.
tonight? Wow, I can't believe
I know,
this.
it's gonna be an early night.
You're gonna hurry up and hit the road.
Yeah, I'm out of here. See you
Before we
guys.
think too hard, you might wanna run for the hills.
Yeah.
All right, John,
So-
thank you.
If you've got any questions, you can always email me. If and I will get back to you as soon as I can. I may not always be able to provide you with the correct answer, but I will get back to you, and I will try to research your answer, research the question, find the answer, and get back to you. And sometimes I give you information that's not totally accurate. I will get back to you
Nope,
and
thank
follow
you.
up with the right information.
You always
as
do.
I see it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'm not sure when we're meeting again, possibly one more time in November or not. We'll talk about it afterward, but if anything comes up, we'll let you know.
Yeah, and if by November, we should have this agreement piece.
By the end of November?
Yeah, solidified and in effect. And I would probably like to come back and visit on that piece and give you the particulars at that point, because the document will be signed.
I have one more question.
Yes.
Do you have a timeline on the budgets, like when they'll be submitted?
Good point.
Well, the budget piece, I'm going to follow the charter. So whatever the bylaw is, we'll have the budget submitted by the second week in, is it the second week in January or something? I was looking at it today.
It's earlier than, yeah. I don't have my stuff from last year, but we pulled it out 10,000 times last year to try to.
So we're going to follow that budget process. The format will be very similar to what we have had. We'll have yet another year. We'll have projected expenditures, and we'll have an actual baseline, and we'll begin to accumulate our history on expenditures. So we'll have and the format will be a little bit not different, but a little bit more detailed than what we had. You're going to see in some of and what I'm going to be able to do is to identify for you in the budget where we have expenditure increases and or salary increases, whether it's relating to collective bargaining or whether it's relating to the personnel bylaw request. One of the things that we were really disappointed in was the bylaw not passing. That was something that has taken, at least from the standpoint of employees in the town who really were under the personnel bylaw, they don't know where they stand right now, because we eliminated the contracts for those individuals, and now they're sitting supposedly, quote unquote, in this concept of limbo. The
We'll probably
fire
see that.
chief is one that has a concern along with all of the other personnel bylaw full-time positions. Unfortunately, town meeting, the dynamics of town meeting was what it was, and while I respect the collective wisdom of town meeting, I don't know how we're gonna proceed with that in the future. I don't need a personnel bylaw to do what I'm doing. I wanted one so that we could work on a consensus building and in collaboration, but that
I
didn't
imagine we'll
happen.
see that again, maybe.
Well, from my perspective,
See it every
I don't
time
need
until-
it. You know,
Yeah.
I don't need it. So,
Maybe the education on it, John.
well, yeah, I think
I
that's
think that's
important.
I think it's just more that people saw the wording and didn't understand the background.
Yeah, and I think so, and I think there was a fair
I
amount
mean, it's
of,
been explained here,
yeah.
but, you know.
Well, not
maybe
everyone
for
watches,
viewers.
not everyone watches the finance
That's-
committee meetings.
No, we don't
No.
even get an audience lately,
I know,
so.
everyone's bored.
I think we will probably see it again, and I don't know, my take on it at town meeting was that people weren't opposed to it so much as they felt that they wanted it to be more complete. They felt like it was kind of half put together, even though the town legal counsel got up and explained it. There were pieces that didn't seem to quite link up between the charter and the bylaw, you know, the personnel bylaw thing, and they kind of really wanted to see it all together. And, you know, there were sections that hadn't been worked on, sections that had been worked on,
Yeah.
sections that still had executive secretary, different things, and I think that that's what the consensus was, that people want it to be final and not do it piecemeal.
Yeah.
And I think it
But I
was.
would have to say, though, that with respect to what the library was looking for, any of the other, it doesn't need to be there, it's in the statute.
Right, but.
And, you know,
I bet if we knew that a week before, we could have
Okay.
addressed
The
it, and then it would
education.
not have been an
Right,
issue at all.
yeah.
Letting,
Whatever.
Yeah.
people
So I think, yeah.
pick it
Well,
apart and put it back together.
well, there was a public hearing, no one showed up. There was an advertised public hearing, no one showed up. And that's what really baffles me. It's like, okay,
I was unaware.
where is everybody? It was
I
at a
was-
selectmen's meeting, it was a
I was-
public
We
hearing.
had people in
It
here
was
3 times to talk about it.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
We had
discussed
Andy
it
in,
here,
we
but
had-
I did not know
Yeah.
that there was a public hearing.
Oh, absolutely was a public hearing. Yeah, it was advertised in the newspaper,
believe
which
you, I
means
just
no
was
one,
saying.
no one reads the newspaper anymore. But that's all right, we'll get beyond it.
All right.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good productive evening, enjoy your,
Have a nice Thanksgiving. We won't be meeting
yeah,
between
we
now
won't.
and then.
That's it. And if it's any thought, and if it's any consolation, I have to tell you that sitting through that grueling meeting on Monday night, I thought Kate Marini did a fantastic job. You know,
Good,
too.
thanks.
yeah, she did a great job. She brought to the table something that is so necessary about, there's another side of the equation other than schools. And there's a town side, it's gotta come
She
from
understands.
somewhere, and she understands that. And so, anyway.
One across good, too.
Yeah, she did a good job. So anyway,
Well, thank you.
on that note, I might have got myself in trouble, but good night.
Thank
Happy
you.
Veterans Day. Thank you. All right, thanks, John. All right, also on the agenda, we've got correspondence, and we have department liaison reports. Department liaison reports including scheduled tours, Sasha Votek, budget discussion. Anybody want to bring anything up?
You can go first.
Tours,
Tours.
they mentioned,
Yeah.
the fire chief would be happy to, anytime that we are willing to meet with him. I don't know whether it's better to do it on a regular Wednesday night meeting or whatever, and I've talked to Deb Grimmett, and she would be happy to take us on a tour of the library, but we need to be aware that the library is not open on Wednesday evening, so we would have to try to find an alternative that's gonna work for everybody's schedule that's interested in going, so.
I like the Wednesday fire department, just because it's our scheduled time anyways.
And we've done it before where we'll start maybe a little early or have, we can do it at 7 o'clock. I don't know how long, did he indicate how long the tour-ish would take? I mean, I've done the fire tour,
What would you think, maybe an hour at the
hour and a
most?
half, maybe,
Hour and a half.
Mm.
We had
But
both
then-
stations, too.
yeah, I was gonna say, and then again, it was back when it was a different chief and everything when I was on it, so it was different things to talk about. I'd be inclined to do it on a Wednesday night.
Okay.
Anyone
Before
interested in?
Thanksgiving or Wednesday after Thanksgiving? Not
Wednesday
like the
after
Wednesday, the 23rd, but like the
Yeah.
next
We've
Wednesday,
got-
the Wednesday.
We've got the 30th is the next Wednesday, November 30th. And then after that, it would be whatever the December 7th or something. I can't, yeah, that's right. I can't do December 7th, but I could do November 30th.
30th
That's
is good
just
for
myself.
me.
Yeah, 30th would be good for me.
All right, I will email him and see if that will work, and time.
I could do it as early as 6:30, but if everyone else is into 7.
6:30 works for me.
Okay.
Anybody else?
And Stephanie?
Yeah, it'll work for me.
Okay.
Okay, we would have to kind of discuss if we're, I may post it anyway
Mhm.
as a meeting, just in case we end up discussing and just to avoid any problems.
Okay.
Okay.
In library, is there was a preferred night if we were gonna do a library?
When that's been open? Evenings, are they open? Does anyone know when the library is open?
I think it's Monday, Tuesday, they open Thursday, and did they open again Friday from like noon time to?
I don't think they're open on Friday, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, they were open like, I thought, a half
Are
a
you
day
checking
on
that out, Sean?
Friday or something.
What are the
Yeah.
hours?
We've got the
Short
secretary
Saturday.
working on that. Assistant Chair, will you get back to us on that?
Library hours, let's see here, it hasn't been updated, so I can't tell you, but it's just still open on this one. Actually, so what, in the evenings, Mondays until 8:30, Tuesdays until 8:30, Wednesdays closes at 5, Thursdays until 8:30, Friday at 5, and then Saturday at 10 to 5.
So it sounds like a Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday. They're open till.
Monday, Tuesday, Thursday,
8
till 8:30?
Yes.
I mean, I can do a Thursday,
I could do
I
it.
just can't do tomorrow.
I can't do a Tuesday, but I could do a Monday or a Thursday.
I can't do a Thursday, but I can do a Monday or a Tuesday.
I can do,
How many people can do Monday?
I can do Monday.
No.
How many Tuesday? You can't do Mondays, Tuesdays? Anybody? Nope, Tuesday's bad. Wednesday, we're good with that. Thursday? I could do Thursday. Oh, well.
Saturday?
No problem.
We've done the Saturday before.
Well, should we revisit that after the first of the year? Do you think people's schedules will be more open? No? I'm trying
Works
to.
for me.
All right, why don't we put that on, for first of the year to try to schedule something? We can work out people's schedules then. Is that okay?
Sure.
Because quite honestly, if we're gonna be meeting on November 30th with the fire department, and if we have one more meeting in December, we're not gonna be meeting probably again because the holidays pop up and stuff, so. All right, so we'll readdress that when we get back in January. You'll get back to us on. Anything else on those? Yep, go ahead. I know it's
Does it?
just.
Anyone else?
Anyone else have a liaison report or a tour question? Yes, Barbara?
So, South Shore VOTEC, Deb, I'll forward you a copy of this. I went there last week. The superintendent had asked if I would just come by and open the lines of communication. So, he sent me, well, they'd like to have a tour also. He'd like to do the tour during the day, which I know is difficult for people. He, one of the suggestions that he had made was, could we even break up into a couple of groups? Is there, you know, if one day during the week isn't good for everyone? So,
What time of day is he talking about? What time do they get out of school? Are they like 2 o'clock
that's,
like
he's
our high
looking,
school?
yeah, they're 2:20, I believe.
So it's more of a morning day.
So anytime, you know, during the day while the students are in school was what he was looking for.
I mean, this finance committee, most of the people do work during the day, not everybody. so days are difficult, we'd have to really schedule something, or for those who can go, you could schedule them some other day, and someone like me, I could get a morning off or something.
So what did, let's throw it out there and see what you guys wanna do about that.
Is it, anyone feel that we should try to get it in before the end? No, let me ask you before we get to that, their budget season
Is now.
is right now, so we haven't seen anything yet, right?
Well, I'm going to, I'll
You
give
go.
you my liaison report. Why don't we do that while we're all thinking about?
I'm just thinking, it's how
Okay,
how
so-
important is it to get in there? I mean, a tour doesn't really have much to do with the budget
unofficial
other than.
enrollment numbers, unofficially, right now, indicate that Abington is up 8 students over last year, from 145 to 153. And then he gives me a 3-year comparison of Abington enrollment against the total in-district school enrollment. So in 2009, Abington had 142 compared to the 586, or 24, a little over 24% of the in-district population. In 2010, we had 24.87%. In 2011, we have 25.42%.
So we're about a quarter
of
of
the
their.
in-district. So in a nutshell, Abington's enrollment has gone up 7.2% from 2009 to 2011. The official numbers will not likely be available until December. All unofficially, and I will forward that email.
Okay, all right. And again, so their budget season is on right now.
They're, yep,
When do they, did they indicate to you by any chance what time when they would propose having? What they do is they put their budget together and then they send each of the towns out their
Right.
budget proposal.
No, but I can,
I think we generally see it close to the end of the year. Or first,
that's what's,
What happened?
kind of what he's saying, right?
This month, they're doing it.
yeah, we see it that little
Well,
packet.
they're gonna vote on it.
Official numbers will not likely be available until December.
I think, aren't they replacing the Abington representative too?
Yes.
They are, how does that work, do we know?
I think
Is that
Yes.
person assigned or
I think it's the Board of Selectmen, isn't it?
I think that you're appointed.
appointed by the Board of Selectmen? Maybe I'll send them a note, see what they can tell us about that.
It was in the paper, that's where I saw it.
And what did it say in the paper, do you recall?
Just that the fellow was gonna be getting done and they were gonna be seeking a new person for that.
So were they asking people kind of to?
Oh, no, it didn't ask.
All right, all right. It's the it's the South Shore Botech School Committee representative, right?
Right.
Okay, I'll follow up on something like that.
So I don't know what we want to do about a tour where that budget is pretty much right now.
I would, personally, I'd be absolutely interested in going on a tour there. I just don't know
You
when.
know, I went and I'll go again just because
Yeah.
you just, the things that you wouldn't think of, like when you're
Yeah.
talking about budget, the things that you wouldn't think of.
It's
An
very
example would be the machines and everything. When, at the VOTEC, there's 2 teachers in the shop room.
Mhm.
If one teacher is on one side of the room, he can't see safety purposes. So if you need to lay off a teacher, you need to close that shop. Safety purposes, you can't just have one teacher in the shop room.
Mhm.
When you're physically there and you look around, just things that you wouldn't have thought of. I thought it was really interesting.
All right.
Do we want to think about it and maybe email you some
Yeah,
days that are good?
why don't we do that, and see if anyone has any time that they think they could do it between now and, the 3rd week in December, or whatever, let me know. And if we have 3 or 4 people that can make it, great, and if we have to do another one in January or February, do another one in January, February.
And that was his suggestion. We
Okay,
could
so
do a
let me-
couple of groups.
Yeah.
So that was South Shore VOTEC, and I talked to Mr. Schaefer also, and I just wanted to quickly add on to, he had also commented about the feasibility study, that that's the next thing that they'll be looking to do, is a feasibility study. And just to answer that question that's out there about, didn't we already do a feasibility study? And we did a feasibility, the feasibility study that we previously did was under the SBA, the School Building Authority. Now we're required to do a feasibility study under the MSBA, the Massachusetts School Building Authority. In the end, it saves us money. So that we're not building these big, huge, elaborate buildings that we don't
And if you take one of the
really need.
designs.
And you can, right, the model schools that they've already got the design for, try to look and do something like that. So, that is something that they're looking to do, and just update on the school committee itself. They're looking to replace one member that resigned, and that was the selectmen's meeting on Monday.
Yeah.
But it was a deadlock, so they're going to revisit that
They're hoping Tom McNulty will be back.
sometime, I think, I had heard, and not through Mr. Schaefer, but someone that was at the meeting, December, I think.
Yeah. Who was it? I was at the meeting.
So that was that, and then he also would like to set up a tour for the schools during the day if possible, and also we can break up into a couple of groups. So,
Okay. That, I think I would probably want to push off until the beginning of next year.
yep, that's
I mean, you
fine.
guys can argue it either way. I just think between Thanksgiving, and then literally there's like 2 weeks,
Right.
and then they're out for Christmas.
Right.
Or 3 weeks, you know, but I just think that it would be kind of insane to try to fit that on until after the first of the
Absolutely.
year.
And we've already got,
Trying to
Trying to
get
do
the police, I mean, trying to get the fire
fire.
and South Shore VOTEC possibly.
because it
So
is VOTEC budget season now,
Okay.
whereas,
We've got a little bit of breathing room.
a little bit.
Not much.
But
All
if we
right.
could just all kind of be thinking about that, the VOTEC. and-
Yeah. The school tour, do they take you through each of the buildings? I mean, we're
Yes.
talking about 6 buildings.
You won't go, well,
Because we've got North now, we've got,
you probably wouldn't, I mean, I'm sure we could go to North, but
I'm just
I
saying, what would he expect to, I mean, because that's like didn't you say it's like a 5-hour event?
I know it was
Which
a
we've got a lot of.
good portion of the day. You know, if, it was a few hours. Last, we did ECC now, Beaverbrook, and the Furlio and the high school.
Okay.
So I would imagine that Beaverbrook, Furlio High School. Center's now reopened.
I know, I
It's
wonder if
still
they would,
at-
I wonder if they would bring us to Center and see what's been going on there. That would be very interesting.
He'll take you where, whatever buildings that you
Okay.
want to go through.
All right.
Absolutely certain of that.
All right, okay, let's keep that in mind. We'll revisit that in January too.
Have they started the windows, you know?
Oh, thank you. Rick. The windows will be started on November
I know the sign's up there.
17th. I'm just going to double check that. It was pushed back just a tiny bit. So that's next
Waiting for the next schedule.
Thursday. They'll be starting. And I meant to bring in, I have it in the car. They have a schedule out of when they're doing each classroom, when they're doing the office, when they're doing the kitchen, when they're doing, you know, so they're very organized, and they'll start that on the 17th.
Do they expect it to be as complete as it's supposed to be so that we don't jeopardize our funding or it get pushed off a little bit?
Last I think I heard from
There's a-
Peter, he was like, you know, they're being a little bit more.
A little more
A little more
leeway.
leeway, but just
Yeah.
to make sure that,
Yeah.
you know, in case they run into an issue that they
Yeah.
weren't anticipating, that we're not gonna jeopardize something, and like how far back was it pushed? Like a,
Oh, no, it was just a few days. But I think we are,
what is complete, I guess, is.
Yeah.
Open to-
Substantially
open-
complete or something.
Substantially complete is open to
Interpretation.
interpretation.
Yeah, so it's not gonna be like, 20% of the building is gonna be done by December, and then we could be like, or,
Right, no, it appeared to me that
It's gonna be
you're
a
gonna
good
be
chunk of it.
right, yeah, and substantially complete.
Okay, awesome, good, that's all I got. Anybody else have any other liaison reports or anything? Nope. All right, good, thank you. We have 2 sets of meeting minutes. I would entertain a motion. It was October 12th and the 24th.
I'll make a motion to accept the meetings of October 12th.
Second?
All in favor?
I have to abstain, I was not here.
Thank you, Cindy. Okay, so those are approved.
And I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of the October 24th.
Second?
And all those in favor? You're all here? Good, awesome, thank you very much. Any other correspondence?
You got a new copy of the Beacon. if
Awesome.
anybody wants it.
Excellent, thank you. And we did get the funding.
We received the budget control and appropriation ledger reports.
Awesome, excellent. And if Michelle was here, but she's not here tonight, I did want to ask her how that, the annual meeting went. The
FAA.
the annual meeting of town finance committees, yeah. But we'll put that on the agenda for next time we meet, because she did send me a picture of my Dukakis giving a speech. But I'd like to hear from her how it went. But I did hear from her in email that she thought it was great, but we can get further into that when she comes back, so. Well, that is all that is on the agenda. Anyone else have anything they're dying to bring up? Yes,
Motion to
Barbara?
adjourn?
Yeah, second.
All those in favor? All right, excellent, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Sorry, Rick, I think I just pushed you. I'm sorry, Rick, we had one more message?
Yes, we want to wish everybody a happy Veterans Day.
Thank you, Rick. Happy Veterans Day.
George Whiting, 100 Colonel Hunt Drive. I've been a member of the Council on Aging since Hector was a pup. I don't know how old that is, but for a very, very long time. It's my intent, especially with new interests, somebody like Lorraine Ryerson, who I think will make a wonderful addition to the board, to step down to maybe an associate status, a status that I originally joined on way back when. I lose my vote, but they don't lose my presence, let's put it that way. So with all these things considered, I would kindly just ask you not to accept my reappointment to the council.